I hope everyone had a great spring break. I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about where we are in the course, review some of the discussion board posts from last week, and then talk about the exam that'll be coming next week. So everyone seems to be doing pretty well on the homework assignments so far. These are the ones where you have 2 attempts to make sure that you get the problems right. Most everyone seems to be getting a pretty solid grade on those assignments. That said, if you are struggling, you feel like you need some extra help or some resources to help the material sink in, certainly give me a call, send me an email. I've already had office hours with people. I've talked with people over the phone. We can do virtual office hours, whatever it takes to make sure that you're successful in this class. Make sure that you're not shy about reaching out to me. But otherwise, in the absence of that, just looking at the grades, things are going pretty well, I think, with the homework assignments. And that's really important that you do well on that in preparation for the exam that'll take place next week. So the exam next week is going to cover the first 4 learning modules, and it's going to be a 90-minute exam. It'll be available next Thursday around, I want to say 8 a.m., and you'll have until Sunday at 11:59 to complete it. Now, you only have 90 minutes to do it, and you have to take the exam in one sitting. So when you click on the exam to begin, you need to be sitting down on your computer, free of distractions, making sure that nobody's going to interrupt you or you don't have something else to do, because that timer is going to start. And after 90 minutes, it's going to take and grade whatever answers you've submitted, and that's going to be it. So make sure that you dedicate and block off a 90-minute block to be able to complete the exam. A couple tips as well. If you're in Blackboard, it will automatically log you out after about 4 hours. So before you start the exam, highly recommend re-logging into Blackboard to reset that timer so that you don't get logged out as you go through the exam. So there'll be that portion. It'll be multiple choice questions, some short answer questions, very similar to the homework assignments that you've done so far. The other part of the exam is I'm going to send you a case study that I actually wrote in the last month or so that looks at Governor Kasich's new executive budget and his cigarette tax proposal for increasing the excise tax for cigarettes by $1 a pack. Talk about the negative externalities, the positive externalities, and I'll ask you to analyze and review that case for next week. And that's going to really reflect the work that you've done so far on the discussion board posts. So I'll provide some more information about that next week before the exam actually starts. But there'll be those 2 pieces that will contribute to your exam grade. As far as the discussion board posts from last week, everyone seems to have done a good job in talking about how their particular work at their firm, or using UC as an example, talking about how their position may or may not be outsourced, what are some benefits of outsourcing, and this really builds on the material that we talked about with markets. So with markets, we saw how if markets are operating freely, that we can reach an equilibrium price and quantity that's efficient for society. And I asked you to think about markets in the context of your firm and why firms might go to the external market, even for labor or for work, when they're trying to maximize their profits. And quite a few of you made some, I think, really insightful comments. Nicholas Kelly, he actually talked about the benefits of outsourcing. His particular firm does outsource sales. He wrote the comment, if you hire my company, you will have your entire front end getting your product into the market within 6 weeks of signing with us, instead of taking a year or more to get a sales and marketing team that knows what they're doing and knows how to work with each other. So I thought that was a really insightful post talking about how firms certainly can benefit from outsourcing different functions within their firm. And Roger Kreis makes a follow-up post on this and talks about how journalism itself is even outsourcing the writing of some of the local news articles. And you may think that if you open your Cincinnati Enquirer or your particular local newspaper, that it's written by a journalist based right here in Cincinnati, and then he links to an NPR article and another news article that talks about how many of these newspaper publishers are actually outsourcing the writing of these articles. They're paying writers $10 an hour across the country to write these articles that have local issues. Brian Tedford talks a lot about how he works for an outsourcing firm that does engineering for P&G. And so quite a few of you talked about the benefits of being outsourced and why a firm might do that. So a couple other comments. Make sure your posts are still 150 words. There were a few of you that were short on that, and I take off points if you're not making sure that your post is at least 150 words. You do need to have a substantial contribution when you make that initial post. So please be sure to do that. A couple final comments. Several of you talked about the reasons why firms might outsource, and certainly IT came out as a pretty commonly outsourced function. Some of the reasons provided were that you can often get those services cheaper if you partner with a firm in India or the Philippines. And so it makes sense why some firms might outsource IT. Maybe you just don't have the resources to pay someone full-time in-house. But some of you also provided some good reasons why there are certain functions that you might keep inside the firm. And some of these include HR. And the reason given is that the hiring of your team is probably one of the most important decisions you can make as a manager. And so understanding how your team works, how the person that you hire is going to contribute to that is certainly a critical function and probably something that you don't want to outsource. Some other reasons were there are certain critical functions around security that you might not want to outsource. So if you have some confidential, some proprietary trade information that you don't want to leak out or make sure that another firm has access to, then you might want to keep those sort of functions in-house as well. So just kind of in conclusion, I think everyone seems to be doing pretty well with their homework assignments, pretty well with the discussion board posts. Please do reach out to me, though, if you're struggling. I do want you to be successful in this class. But otherwise, I will be in touch probably next week. I'll do some review of what we've covered this week and then talk a little bit more about the exam. Take care. Bye.